Snaží se nám to připojit. Ještě vyzkouší něco, ale netuším, to může být problém, protože veškeré práva by měly být v pořádku.
Dobře. Já zkusím ještě Ivoně zavolat a uvidíme, ona mi volá teďka, jo? Možná jenom ještě informace, díky tomu, že jsme zapli event, kvůli Ivoně, jestli se přihlásí nebo nepřihlásí, tak už nahráváme a jsme live, ano? Děkuju.
So, good.
So let's start. Good afternoon.
Good
afternoon. So let me start with welcoming everyone on today's webinar on cultural adaptability, which is organized by Tietoevry in cooperation with Business pro společnost. And I'm very pleased that we can explore this crucial topic together. It's significant not only for working environment, but also for society. Sorry, I have a little technical issue. So at our company, we firmly and really truly believe that diversity is our strength, because each team member has different background, different experience, different cultural background, actually. And it helps us to be more innovative and more creative, which in IT is very, very important. So today we will have opportunity to talk, explore, and understand more about cultural adaptability. So welcome again, and let's start with really great discussion.
Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Čekova, the Global Operation Lead from Tietoevry. So my name is Kamila Čubanová. I'm from Business pro Society, and together with me is colleague Pavel Sten, the Director of the Business Society. And as it was mentioned, we do the webinar together with Tietoevry company. The webinar is part of the events during the European Diversity Month, which is always in May. And there are many activities in the European Union or events that are happening across all the EU countries. So we also do our part, and the webinar is one of those events. As it was mentioned, the topic of today is cultural availability at workplace, and we're going to have really fantastic speakers and fantastic guests. So we are all looking forward to it. And now I will give the floor to Pavel Sten, the Director of Business for Society, to give us a few words.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting, networking webinar on the topic of the cultural adaptability in companies or multicultural diversity. Thank you very much to Tietoevry company for organizing and hosting today's meeting webinar. As Kamila mentioned, this event takes place in the framework of the European Diversity Month 2024, because the May every year is a traditional diversity month in the frame of the European Commission framework. The topic of the cultural adaptability or diversity and inclusion of foreign employees, especially at the technology companies, is very important for companies and also for the Czech labor market. As you know, the openness of the Czech labor market is very important, and everyone talking about the needs of the greater flexibility of the Czech labor market, and it's also important for technological companies and for qualified people for technological sector. As always, responsible companies are leading by example, and our today's meeting, we hope will bring inspiring ideas and experiences for mutual sharing of the best practice. I wish you a very inspiring and interesting afternoon in the frame of our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel. And I would like to also mention one thing. So there are webinar guidelines and instructions in a Q&A section, so everybody can read it. If you have any questions or any issues with the connection or something, just let us know via the question and answer section. And I would also like to mention that the webinar will be recorded for further reference. So I think that we are all okay with it. And now, thank you for the introduction. And now we're going to move to one of our valuable guests, which is with Zuzana Křecková, the associate professor from the Vysoká škola ekonomická. And she will give us the introduction to the topic of cultural adaptability, as she's got a very great experience and many years of experience with this topic. So we are looking forward to your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for confirmation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to share with you my passion, and that's cultural differences and how to live with this within this globalized world and how to manage that. My name is Zuzana Křecková, and I am associate professor at Prague University of Economics and Business. And I have been fascinated by this topic since, past 30 years. These are my sources of my cross-cultural passion. You can see that I studied, and I studied during the master's degree. I studied from professors of 7 different universities, and then I went to business. I worked for Arthur D. Little and Dinergy and Krauthammer, which allowed me to spend for 12 years working for clients at different markets. And then I decided to pursue even further my passion for cross-cultural issues. And I started teaching. I teach at Prague, I teach in the US, and I also was teaching in Brazil. So I will be more than happy to take you on this journey with me. So what is the culture that we will have in mind? There are different perceptions of culture, and today we will focus on the national culture. There are more than 170 definitions of national culture, and I personally like these 3 because I think that they allow us to easily show what the culture really is. Culture is something that we are not born with. Culture is something that we acquire in childhood. We learn it from our predecessors, from parents, grandparents, uncles, aunties, and we share it. So nobody can have a culture on his or her own. Culture is shared with people who live in the same social environment. And culture is formed around values, and that's one of the key things, because that's the absolute core, which usually we are not very much aware of. There are several different theories who describe culture, and one of the nicely, explainable one is a culture as an onion. Culture works as an onion, and onion is something that you can peel off layer by layer by layer. Here you could see the most outer layer of the cultural onion. Those are the explicit products or artifacts. Those are the things that people take pictures of and they put them on Instagram or Facebook, show to friends. And those are the most visible things that the culture shows us. Architecture, food, fashion, smells, music, language. What is beneath are the norms and values. And they say what is right and what is wrong, what is appropriate and inappropriate in society, what is beautiful and what is ugly, and how people should, based on these values, behave. Which kind of behavior will be appreciated, rewarded, and which kind of behavior will be punished. And in the absolute core is history and existence that is a source of all these values and norms. Another model which is nice to easy to describe is the model of Gerd Hofstede, where you could see the values in the absolute center, and around that you could see rituals, which means what people love, how do they organize weddings, how they organize funerals, but also ritual could be how the people organize leaving when they are retiring from companies, or how is the recruitment process into companies. Yeah, even that is a ritual which might be national culture specific. Cultures have heroes. Heroes are the persons, either alive, real, or past, who died, or could be just mythical. Heroes who represent the typical values and types of behavior of people of that culture. And on the most outer layer are those symbols that you have seen. And across all these layers, you could see the practices, which means how people behave. And sometimes the cultures bring us even this. This is a typical Christmas day in Australia. You could see that this is on Bondi Beach, by the way, in Sydney. There has never been snow in Bondi Beach, but you could see that Australians love to celebrate Christmas Day with snowmen and all the things that you would expect here in Central and Northern Europe. Why? Because it is a cultural thing. It is within their values and norms of behavior. They like it because they culturally brought this kind of celebration from Europe. That's why they celebrate it the way that they do. So this is one of those non-rational things that the culture is bringing with itself. So now the question is, are we all the same when we come from one national culture? Well, of course we are not. We are not, because culture is only one part of us. Here in this model, you could see that we all have the human nature background as a base. This is something which is universal for all people around the globe, and it's something that is biologically inherited. The next layer is culture, and there comes exactly what we learn when we are acquiring our national culture. And on top of the pyramid, you could see personality, which is something which is partially inherited and partially learned. So you could see that each of us is original, unique person. However, culture is having its imprint on our personality. So why shall we study cultural differences? Does it make sense? Does it make any value? Oh, well, of course, it has value now. It had value in 20th century, but you could see that even in the 16th century, it had its value. People were already aware of that. So already Niccolo Machiavelli was aware of the fact that people across different regions are having different cultures. And these differences are sometimes causing beautiful misunderstandings like this. When you start talking about football with a colleague who might be sitting next to you, sooner or later you might realize that each of you is talking about different sport. The same might happen even to other symbols of culture, because what might be for somebody just decoration or souvenir for vacation, it could be very valuable and precious thing for praying. Also, what do we do in our life? What has a value for us? Not only things, but also alive objects like animals. And sometimes we borrow things which used to be traditional somewhere, and we make them trendy now. And what was trendy might be somewhere in the world very traditional. So we are even borrowing it. And cultural differences are related also to numbers. And if you are very engineering-oriented person, which I assume more of you are, you could... Sorry? It's probably not for me, right?
Someone was unmuted, so if you can mute yourself, please. Sorry. So go ahead.
Okay. So if you are a very numbers-oriented person and you are, let's say, technological engineer, you might say that number is just a number. However, not within the area of cultures. Some cultures appreciate certain numbers over the others, and sometimes they appreciate them very, very much. Like, for example, number 8 in China is considered to be a lucky number, very lucky number, because pronunciation of 8 is close to pronunciation of wealth. On the contrary, number 4 is very unlucky, both in Japan and in China, because pronunciation of that word is close to word death. And here in Europe, we somehow don't like number 13 because we call it unlucky number. Oh, you could say, okay. But this becomes serious when money matters. And for example, you might remember that Beijing Olympic Games started on the 8th day of 8 months in the year 2008 at 8 p.m., 8 minutes and 8 seconds. And by the way, it was GMT plus 8 hours. So you see that Chinese take numbers 8 very seriously. And if you are, well, having Chinese as a client, like British Airways, for example, you try to put as many 8s as possible, even into the code of the flight that is frequently connected between London and China. Some developers or hotel owners go even that far that they try to eliminate unlucky numbers from their buildings. So this is an example from Hong Kong, where they try to eliminate any number 4, not only 4, but also 14, 24, 34, and a whole floor that, or 10 floors will start with 4. But to please European customers, they rather eliminated even the floor number 13. Why? Because it's money. Because clients would not like to live in these floors. You would have to sell them cheaper, or those rooms would be unoccupied. So these are causes of culture. And when you are also sitting next to a colleague of yours or communicating with colleagues of yours, you might say that it requires a courage from you to do public speaking. Some people consider bungee jumping as a courageous thing. But for some people, just showing on the street might mean a courage, and showing without hiding the face might be courage. Well, and in order not to scare you completely that dealing across cultures is so super complicated, I would like to fairly say that national culture is one of the levels of cultures that we are experiencing in our life. Here on the left side, you could see levels of different types of cultures that we meet in our life. The national culture is the one that we acquire in the family, which you could see on the right side. There is where we socialize as from childhood. And that's mostly based on very strong values. The next might be social class. If you come personally from culture which doesn't have very strong social classes, this might sound weird to you, but there are certain countries or cultures where social class means a lot. Then there is occupational culture, which is something that you might like because this is something that we acquire at school, and then we acquire it at different associations or even at different sections of jobs. And occupational culture is something that you share even with people from different companies. If you are IT specialist, you have a passion for IT, for development, And you will be more than happy to talk to even absolute stranger if the person is from the same occupation. And then you have the industry, which is even more specific. And then you have organizational culture, which means that each organization can add or shape the environment around you so that you feel well. And that's what we acquire at work. What is important is the division line from top right to the bottom left, where you see that which kind of cultures are mostly based on values and which are mostly based on practices. Value is something which is very deeply inside of us, and sometimes we behave by values even automatically. But practices is something more superficial. It's something easily learnable, easily adjustable, and there is the hope for you in companies that you can work with practices much easier than with values. And now a bit of fun for you. This is also example how we differentiate across the Atlantic. Classical European out of office message and American out of office message. So we can have fun about that, but the truth is that Americans are definitely more workaholics than we in Europe are. So how can we work with these cultural differences for our benefit? Because having diverse colleagues and working in a very diverse environment could be fantastically enhancing innovations, enhancing better client response, and even satisfaction of people if they are managed well. Because poorly managed diverse teams have subpar outcomes. So let's have a look. Can plane crashes be explained by cultural dimensions and cultural differences? Unfortunately, yes. There are certain types of cultures where you could have so bad communication given by culture that people can be able to even cause crashing of a plane. This is from quite serious study that analyzed different crashes and even eliminated all the other factors. And yes, culture was then named the main factor who caused it. So now I have cultural dimensions of selected national cultures for you, and I used one of the most common model for you, as we have only those 40 minutes. So let me take you on the journey. I took the model of Professor Gerd Hofstede, who unfortunately already passed away, and his model distilled, based on this research, 6 cultural dimensions, and we will go one after another. I prepared for you 8 cultures that you either notorically meet in the Czech Republic, which are Czechs, Slovaks, Ukrainians, and Vietnamese. And then I added a couple of cultures which might be relevant for you industrially, especially Finnish, Indians, and also the biggest business partner of Czech Republic, Germany, and the biggest economy, China. And now we will go, please don't, no, let's go one after another. We will get to that. What is here beneath are those cultural dimensions, and we will go one after another, so don't worry, we will get to that. And you can see that already, if you look at these 4 cultures which meet, I would say, probably in every job in the Czech Republic, you could see there are significant differences in their cultural setup. And here you have the cultural differences of the next 4 cultural partners. So when we have a look at the first one, at the first dimension, which is called power distance, this is a dimension which says how much people who are the least favored in the society are tolerating different unequal access to resources, unequal access to power, to money, to economical power, political power, how much they are willing to tolerate it. And this is, by the way, was one of the key dimensions of those plane crashes that caused the plane crashes. Because those, now you probably ask yourself, okay, so which airlines shall I fly? You should rather fly with those where the companies and pilots come from low power distance cultures. Yeah, because those who were crashing were from the high power distance ones, where the subordinates might have a tendency to hide the negative messages or to be hesitant to talk upwards toward their bosses. And those were the causes of those plane crashes. Centralization of decision making is here, so that's why also that crashes were caused. And in high power distance cultures, employees prefer receiving clear instructions what they should do. They are used to more to implement than come up with ideas. And if you are a boss, you are something like a father, then you are appreciated if you behave like that. So being boss might be even going beyond your normal work. And you definitely are not equal to each other. No. So status symbols are important. So you have to show that you are a boss. You must have bigger office, better car, more expensive wristwatches. Yeah, so the power distance has to be clearly shown. If you wish to look further than these 8 cultures, here you have a globe with the values. So the darker the color, the higher the power distance. So you could see that the power distance is quite strong in Asian countries, in Latin America, Central and Latin America. While if you talk to sort of our Western culture, I would say the US, Canada, and majority of Europe, you would find quite lower levels. Easier talking to the boss and more frequent communication on both sides. The next dimension is individualism. And this dimension says how much people value and how much they pursue fighting or stressing their own individual needs, requirements, remunerations. Individualistic cultures prefer management by objectives. People prefer if they can work on their own, to be responsible for their own work. They don't need team that much. At the same time, individualistic cultures are willing to take responsibility for what they do. So they are able to come and say, okay, I didn't make it well. I need to rework it. Yes, they more talk about them, like I instead of we. And they are focused on tasks. They don't have to care that much about the relationships. While in the collectivistic cultures, where you would have more the Vietnam or Ukraine or India, people care after the group first and then themselves. They see themselves primarily as a member of some group, and then sometimes after a long time they see themselves as a one single individual person. So group is more important. The group could be family, group could be company, group could be your team, So that very much depends on how it is defined within that culture. For example, in China, your group is your guanxi, and that's the most important group that you have. Again, if we want to have a look more at the global scale, the darkest cultures are the most individualistic ones. And here you can see, for example, how Australia differs from all the rest of Asian Pacific region where it is located. Why? Well, because they imported the culture from the mainly UK and Ireland in the history, and they still keep it. They still keep it. The next dimension is used to have a different name, masculinity, but now they renamed it to motivation towards achievement and success. And in these masculine cultures, people value above everything success, money, achieving, winning. So within their motivation, what works best are things like employee of the month, employee of the year, employee of the week. They just wish to be rewarded. They wish to compete. And it's both men and women. It's basically in the whole society. Bosses are expected to be strong decision makers. Actually, the boss could be even wrong, but the decisions have to be done strongly because boss can change the idea. Yeah, boss can change the opinion easily next week. While in the feminine cultures, people more prefer their free time, relationships. The ideal boss, they also prefer a lot to work-life balance. The ideal boss is the one that is able to facilitate perfectly discussion to make sure that everybody participates, that everybody can say a word, that everybody's voice was heard during the discussion. So those are the feminine cultures. And when looking at the world, the darkest ones are the most masculine ones, where you could see competition and tendency to search for winning. Another dimension is about uncertainty, which means how much the culture is willing to take risks or how much the culture is trying to do everything to minimize the risk. In cultures with low uncertainty avoidance, people are quite tolerant. They don't stress themselves so much with the deadlines, which doesn't mean that they do not deliver. They do deliver. They just are flexible. They work hard if it is necessary. Yeah, yes, why not? But they really do not stress overly with anything. While in high uncertainty avoidance cultures, you could expect more manuals, more precision, more stress about everything being based on the plan, more trainings on different security procedures. Yeah, so everything has to be well assured before. Here the darkest ones are those who are high on uncertainty avoidance, who don't like, who are risk averse. And the next dimension is about long-term orientation, basically about perception or work with time. Long-term oriented cultures are the ones who prefer investments that might last even beyond the horizon of their life. They are willing to really think about long investment horizon. While the short-term cultures, they wish to see the results in the next month or at least in the next quarter. Yeah, they are really focused on quick wins. They are impatient. They just want to see how fast their ideas will be flourishing and implemented. Here, the long-term oriented cultures are the darkest ones. And the last dimension that I wish to share with you is the indulgence. Indulgence means how much people can enjoy free gratifications that life is bringing to them. And in those, in those indulgent cultures, people are more optimistic, but could also have less moral discipline, and they have a perception that they have their life under the control. And in the best culture here, what you could see is the Finland. Yeah, they are more enjoying it. While in the restrained cultures, you have more heart attacks, more pessimism, people don't smile that much, and you have tight society rules. And here the darkest color, the darkest tone shows the indulgence, where people feel that they should indulgently enjoy their life, day, and so on. So where are the biggest and most frequent barriers and what to do with them in a company? So far you have seen what is bringing, where the differences come from and what is deeply rooted in us. And sometimes it's really even unconscious for us. Yeah, we have a bias because we grew up in that. How do we perceive differences between genders? What is our attitude toward elderly, toward money? All that is coming from the culture. So what to do? You have two types of colleagues. Some of them relocate to your company from distant culture, or you might be thinking about relocating somewhere further. What happens to everybody is a cultural shock. And it's unpleasant, but it comes, and it's only up to you if you are able to overcome it, and if your company helps you, your environment, your friends, your new friends in company. At the beginning, everybody is enjoying honeymoon. It's called honeymoon. Everything is different tastes, different restaurants, and we are excited. But then comes culture shock because we start not understanding things. We might have some tensions at work with colleagues. Then we try to adjust, and ideally we reach the mastery. I would say that not everybody reaches that. And that's where exactly the help of company should come. These are the possible triggers of the cultural shock, which is hard. And what could be the symptoms? So if you see them at yourself or at your colleagues, take them seriously. Yeah, it's normal. It's no shame. It happens. It can happen to you, to your family members, and it's important to deal with that. What are the aspects influencing how deep your culture shock will be? It could be cultural distance, which means how much different is your home national culture from the one to which you moved. Also distance of tasks, how much different tasks you are responsible for at your new company or at your new position compared to tasks that you were doing in your past position in your home country, and how much social support you have. Yeah, and there is definitely the space for companies to help. What helps for successful integration? University environment or groups that are based on a common interest or skills, which is the nice thing that you could stress in your companies. Yeah. And if people feel like being more equal, it helps them to overcome the shock. So here you have the main reasons for successful integration, basically what will help and what to help with. And now I'm moving to a bit lighter part, but also serious, but I promise more pictures, yeah? So it will be easier now to stay with me for the next minutes. So how to manage those cultural differences, even if you do not move to different culture? Because some of you are just sitting in your office, and suddenly you are having a lot of colleagues from different cultures. Companies merge, companies fuse, companies acquire another companies, and suddenly you have colleagues from culture that you have never visited or you have never even dreamed about having interaction with. What you could definitely do, and everybody in the company should do, is developing intercultural competencies. You could also manage your own mind and words and behavior. What are the intercultural competencies? Preconditions for successfully working in multicultural environment. Here you have a couple of definitions, and all of them are valid. Is it easy and is it fast? No. No, it's something that we have to live through, because becoming interculturally competent, it's like a lifelong process. Every culture will surprise you with something else. So what helps definitely is acquiring knowledge about the other culture. Thinking about your own attitude. Are you curious? Am I tolerant to ambiguity? Am I motivated to learn more about people from the other culture? And of course, observing and managing your own behavior. Because which side is up? Is this the map, or do you feel uncomfortable now? If you do, then it's because suddenly you might have a feeling that the world is upside down. But it's upside down for whom? Or where is the human potential on the earth? Where are the people that will potentially be your colleagues or your clients? And this is a adjusted map based on the human potential of the globe. And how you can also manage your mind, saying to yourself, who is in the center? Because we have a natural tendency to say it's us and them, but who is us? Who is in the center of this all? So yeah, having a lot of these questions in mind definitely helps to open and then adjusting your communication. Because between sender and receiver, there is always a noise, and culture is one of very strong noises that are adjusting the message before the receiver receives it. We have several layers how we communicate: verbal, non-verbal, paraverbal, but also extraverbal, which is the environment which is around us. And this can cause huge misunderstandings across cultures. Here I have an example for you. When British, which are one of the most high context communication cultures in Europe, when they say something, what they mean by that, which is the middle column, and in the last column, what Dutch person would understand. And Dutch people from Netherlands, they are one of the most low context communication cultures. So if, for example, a British person says, perhaps you would think about what, or I would suggest, it means this is an order. Do it, or be prepared to justify yourself. But the Dutch person understands, okay, I should think about that idea and do something about it if I like. These misunderstandings can cause huge consequences. If it is your subordinate and you speak more like British, the Dutch person might not be doing the things that you want to do. If you are on the other side, it might even cost you a career, because if you would be Dutch, you will not understand that you should change things, update them, rework them, improve them. Yeah, especially word interesting or original could be very confusing, because when the person British says, this is an interesting idea, or that's an original point of view, they mean it's very stupid. But the Dutch person would understand, oh, that's interesting idea. They like it. Here you have comparison of a bit of more cultures. So close to those Swiss Germans and Germans, you would find the Dutch persons. And then you see that the British are much further. They are more high-tech context communication. And then when you move to Latin America or Southeast Asia, the context is even stronger. So everything has a meaning. Clothes, weather, place, how many of you years do you know each other? How many people do you have in the meeting? And the other side has in a meeting. So everything communicates. So in all this cross-cultural, I would say, confusion, who is the most important for you? The managers, your managers or team leaders, or how you call them, because they have to make sure that everybody knows which game you are really playing. They have to make sure that people understand each other, that they are getting along well with each other, and that the environment is okay for them and that they feel well. And how can you do it? There are 3 easy steps. First, recognize your own culture and the culture of the other people. Learn something about them. Then have a respect to culture of others. There is nothing like better culture or worse culture. No, they are just different and they are next to each other. And in the end, try to reconcile, to make some small positive steps in order to improve relationships and understanding, and then it will work. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attention, and now I will give the floor to our organizers. Thank you.
Thank you, Zuzana Křecková. It was a very interesting presentation, and I hope that we're going to be sharing the materials for all of you, because there was so many information and so many interesting things. So we'll definitely share it. But thank you for being with us. And I would like to mention that Ms. Křecková will stay with us until the very end of the webinar, and she'll be also part of a later discussion if you may have some questions directly to her. But before we move, can I give you one question just now? What was your biggest cultural shock or aha moment when we talk about the cultural differences or cultural adaptability?
My biggest actually, okay, so one during the studies, when I started to study in the UK, the teachers told us, please talk to us in the first name. I'm John, I'm Jim. It took me whole semester to get used to that. And then I moved with my study program to Belgium, and I had a feeling, okay, so here in the West, they do it like this. Oh, no. In Belgium, you have to come up with all the academic titles like here in the Czech Republic. So that was one of the biggest shocks. And then in terms of further like work experience, my biggest shock was in Brazil when I lived and worked there, because the safety in Brazil, given the crime rate and structures of society, is so different from anything that I've ever lived and experienced with, that basically constantly feeling like that you are potential object of kidnapping is a different thing than you feel in the street, and then you see the classy society and the fact that people have so huge barriers to get from one layer of society to the other, and technically speaking, the layer to which you are born is usually the layer where you stay. Yes, so the upward or downward social mobility is nearly impossible, which is something that we are not used to do at all. Yeah, in the Czech Republic, we don't have it. Yeah, that's kind of dimension that we do not have. So that was probably the biggest one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer, and you're going to stay with us, so there will be, I believe, more questions to you later on. And now we are going to move to the second part of our webinar. So it's going to be the discussion panel. And we'll have really a great opportunity to hear the best practice from really the top-notch companies, IT leaders. So I'm very happy to welcome in an online space great speakers and great guests. So it's Petr Gratz, the head of engineering from Tietoevry, Jakub Lukešfrom, HR business partner from Microsoft company, and Ivona Kopčová, HR manager from IBM Česká republika. So welcome all of you here. We are really happy to have you. And we're going to have the questions for you. So first, let me begin with the opening questions. I will start with Mr. Gratz from Tietoevry. So how many nationalities do you have in your company here in the Czech Republic?
Well, it's changing every day, but I would say that we have around 20 or more, right? We have people basically from around the globe. The size of the company and global kind of aspect is that actually we have basically facilities and offices around the globe, starting from Americas, in Europe, in Asia. So basically for those people who prefer to stay in their homes, they can be there, of course. But here in Czech Republic, we have offices mainly in Ostrava and Brno, which is all around together something like 2,500 people. And we have more than 20 nationalities, both from Europe and from outside.
Okay, thank you. So it seems that the foreigners are very important source or talent pool for you. So how does your company support the integration of foreigners into your company and also in broader community?
Speaking about offices here in Czech Republic, which is again what I mentioned before, like more than 2,000 people, we have a kind of structure in place how to support foreigners coming here. Both basically people who are joining like young talent from the local universities, but foreigners, but also people who are basically kind of relocating, like senior professionals from around the globe. So we have some structure in place, but we are really approaching them very individually because there are individual needs per individual people. If you are a single, if you have a family, small kids, larger kids, and so on. So basically, I think this is very common for most, let's say, larger international companies. Things around helping with finding the right accommodation, helping with you need to do a lot of paperwork, right, while coming here. So supporting these activities with basically assigning like a buddy from here, from Czech Republic, who usually with foreigners kind of help him or her going to the offices, going to the banks, and sometimes helping with the translation and those things. We always kind of recommend foreigners coming here to join the expat communities. Like one example here in Brno, where I'm actually based in, we have a large expat community, which is again very good environment for people coming from different countries to share the best practices, knowledges, and things like this. And then of course recommending schools and kindergartens for the kids, both like local or English speaking and those things. So in a nutshell, we have a structure in place which we offer and propose to anyone who is coming here, actually even before people come here, and then very individual approach to each of these person because individual needs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you very much for the answer. So, and how does it work in your company, Ivona? So how do you integrate and adapt your employees from other countries in the Czech Republic?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. So maybe a couple of things that Petr already mentioned would be similar or the same. In IBM, we have a really long-term culture of welcoming and really being happy for have foreigners in our company. We used to have a big delivery center in Brno, which, by the way, I was part many years in my HR career for IBM. Now it is Kyndryl, but we are still leveraging from the experience that we had in the center. In IBM Czech Republic, which is more, let me say, local company or local business oriented environment, we also have a number of foreigners. If I count, it would be around 10%. And most of them were relocating to IBM Czech Republic historically because of the CE headquarters we used to have here in Prague. In terms of the, let's say, introduction in the beginning or welcoming the foreigners, it really helps that English language, for example, is part of the DNA that we have. So all the communication is in English, sometimes maybe bilingual, but we really try to communicate to everyone in this language. All the documents, all the processes, all the internal communication, everything is handled in English, and it's really something that our colleagues from other countries really welcome. The other thing that we try to do as kind of occasional thing are activities that are supporting, let's say, to share differences between various cultures. So maybe I can say just a very concrete example. We have in our region, which is now NC, Northern Europe and Central and Eastern Europe, we have created a calendar that is showing in which concrete months or day various nations or countries are celebrating things. Sometimes this is in common, like Christmas, for example. Sometimes we have very different occasions to celebrate or to really meet with people and discuss something very, very concretely on a concrete nation. And this was helping very much to learn more about each other and to also show the importance of each of our employees who are coming from foreign country, to introduce a little bit more about them, and also maybe to welcome Czech people to visit the foreign countries.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And the same question to you, Jakub, how does it work in Microsoft?
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Good afternoon. So yes, for Microsoft globally, obviously, we have close to 200,000 employees across the planet. So the variety of nationalities is incredibly wide. So let me focus on Czech Republic. We have over 1,400 employees in the Czech area. That spans across, sales, marketing, HR, engineering, and other professions. With that, almost half of those, or more than half, I would almost say 2/3 of the population in Czech Republic is actually out of the country, with over 60 nationalities being present in our local development center. I would probably repeat everything of the practices that has been mentioned. So let me build on top of it by saying one of the things that we have identified as the biggest challenges for talent that comes here from outside of Czech Republic and a lot of the times outside of European Union is the loss of support networks. The closeness to friends, the closeness to family. And that is one of the things that we have been trying to invest into by building local communities. Beside of having a buddy that helps you with onboarding, beside of having a system that supports you during the immigration period with the paperwork, translation, our official bureaucracies, and so on and so forth, it is the day-to-day experiences that people have when they are not necessarily working, but also obviously when they are working. So building an internal network of communities for people to share their hobbies, share their interests, and create that support network that exists outside of the bounds of work was one of the things that we have been trying to invest into to help people that are not from this country to feel more comfortable here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your answer as well. I think that they are very great ideas, even for other people that are watching us. I would also like to ask the participants if you have any questions that you would like to give to one of our speakers or to all of them. Just send it via the question and answers. So we'll be then happy to answer that. Okay, my next question would be that the multicultural teams are quite important, and especially for you as an IT companies when you need really talents and top talents from all over the world. But sometimes it may bring some challenges in terms of communication, collaboration. So have you ever faced any issues related to the potential discrimination or bias or some challenges of this, and how did you address them? Or do you have any policies or something that can help in such situations? I mean, whoever wants to answer, or I can pick some. Oh, okay, Ivona.
All right. Yeah, I mean, as IBM is a very international company, in the initial stage of sourcing candidates, for example, or trying to attract talents and hire them into IBM positions, we are already a couple of years using international teams also for the talent acquisition job, let me say. So usually it's really considered very, very international job to attract talents, and there is not any, in my view, there is not any bias of local people, to, for example, avoid to search for candidates from other countries. Also, with some specific skills, we know we have to really extend our region and our scope for trying to find really people with enough experience for the openings. and also our intention is to really have diverse team and diverse environment. So I would rather say in our situation is the other way around. We really want to have colorful teams, really to have a diverse environment for the success of our jobs. What is interesting, what I can share from our long-term experience in IBM worldwide, we have a number of tools that any employee can use in case something is going in a wrong direction or they feel they are not treated well. So we have a long-term experience with a tool called Employee Concerns and Appeals. So let me say this is something rather general. So anyone can raise any issue that he or she is experiencing. It may be handled also on an anonymous base, or it can be, let's say, further investigated if that's needed. So we have a global teams behind this solution. And we have also a rather new tool for the last couple of years, which is called Talk It Over. And this tool is primarily related to any kind of non-inclusive behavior on the workplace or generally in cooperation between IBMers or partners. So I think we have really long-term experience, and we are selling, let me say, selling or promoting the tools to each employee on a regular basis. Every year, every employee is going through basically mandatory education, which is concerning the inclusion and overall diversity approach. And we are trying also to show real examples in that training, what may happen, how employees should respond. So I think we are really trying to make sure that everyone feels well and supported and included in our workplace.
Thank you. Maybe Jakub, if you can continue.
Yeah, to your question, whether we experience situations of escalations or, let's say, discomforts or misunderstandings, I would say probably all the time. Yes, of course, we have trainings, and I really appreciated Professor Křeckova's presentation, because a lot of the content that was shared from her, we have as part of our holistic, D&I or diversity and inclusion trainings and workshops and all things that are happening around the year. But that being said, of course, we always have situations. We do have sources or outlets where people can escalate certain, let's say, more critical moments, and then those are reviewed by experts that are trained specifically for such situations. We have quite a variety of teams that are dedicated for consulting specific things, specific topics. So D&I would be one of those, and cultural diversity being of course a subset to that. But majority of the situations that happen will most likely land on the table of the manager. And that's where I really appreciated the call out for the role of a manager and the capabilities that managers really need to have to be able to deal with diverse and mainly distributed teams. Because although we might have the diversity in Czech Republic, a lot of our managers have teams that are dispersed across the region or even multiple different time zones. And then it's really a combination of the ability of managing hybrid teams, but also the ability to manage diverse situations or such sensitive conversations like this. And from the capabilities that were called out in the presentation preceding this discussion, we focus on very similar set of diverse capabilities, and those are, exercising curiosity, courage, and awareness, and that really reflects on our own limitations, our own bubble that we exist in, and the frame of reference that we have to recognize that that may not be the center of the world either. So that we are a little more inclusive and have better conversations about them. So for the set of capabilities we try to instill in our managers, that would be another role of the HR partners and managers that consult with leaders to make sure that they are growing and they are actually continuing on that journey of being more inclusive with every single experience they get.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And how actually do you handle the potential misunderstandings or potential conflicts in Tietoevry, Peter?
I would just second on what actually both Ivona and Jakub kind of mentioned. So I mean, first for us, it really kind of is all about the managers, right? Because most managers, they have teams with the multiple nationalities. Some managers having even remote teams, which are maybe on the other side of the globe, right? So we have, I think, very good structure and leadership programs and trainings for managers to be able to work in this multicultural kind of environment, which is a kind of, let's say, basics, right? This is a standard thing what we do. We do have mechanisms, tools, and basically escalation process. If anything kind of wrong happens, that any single employee can basically kind of, let's say, escalate this through the HR channels, all of these things. But I would actually maybe focus also on one thing, which is the practical things. How does it really work, right? So I think I really like what Professor Křecková mentioned about this communication, right? Because many things which are potentially creating issue is the miscommunication on different understanding of the message which is being delivered, right? So like I really like this example between the British or English people and the Dutch, right? And this is exactly right, because in many cases these are the points where maybe some friction or some miscommunication happens. So I think what is really important, one common language. So similar like in Microsoft, and I believe also IBM and other companies, it's English, right? Everything what is official is English, right? So nobody can kind of say that I sorry, I didn't understand or something like this. So English is the one. And then you know, I mean, during like the daily work of the people, it's always a good idea to standardize the processes, right? So while we really value the diversity in the multicultural environment and promoting the culture of each country, nationality, and so on, being able to run the large corporation, you need to standardize the processes, right? So if you have standardized processes for basic daily project type of the work and organizational work, this is kind of helping to clarify all of these issues. And again, I mean, there are different tools like the cultural navigators and so on. So usually people who work with the people, you know, very typical example is like Europe versus Asia, right? I mean, if you communicate to people, then you need to adjust your way of communicating, of delivering message, and even receiving feedback to who do you talk to, right? So of course we know that if you talk to people in, again, other side of the globe, typically for Asia is this culture of not being able to say no and those things, right? So you need to basically kind of have the right structure, communication, meeting minutes, and those things, so that it's clear to both sides. This is what we agree on. This is how we are proceeding. These are the next steps, and so on. So to summarize it, basically, common language, ideally, defined processes, and basically adjusting the communication and way of working to the culture you work with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the answer. We already touched the important role of the leaders and managers managing such teams. So you already mentioned that you have some trainings for those leaders. Do you have any other ideas for how to develop how to develop the leaders to effectively manage such teams, apart from the trainings and what you have mentioned, or any practical tips from your experience? Jakub.
I can, yeah, I think to a degree it's simply the exposure to those situations. What we run here throughout the year, and leaders of certain seniority are expected to have inclusive dialogues. And those are, you know, preset conversations, or not preset, but they have a certain format, those conversations, with a respective group. And that can be depending on what minority groups are prevalent in the location, or specific employee resource groups, or simply getting the leader in front of the dedicated group of individuals that can share insights that the leader may not be aware of, right? So exposure to those situations, I think, is one practical aspect that opens up, obviously, the conversation in itself to the organization, but it makes people and leaders mainly aware. And second is really talking about and having leaders self-reflect on the incredible amount of impact that they themselves have from their own position. We have a set of core priorities for managers that are to model, coach, and care. And I think to model is one of the core ones that I definitely try to challenge my leaders on, which is just the sheer fact of being a leader. You and your behaviors are modeling the culture of the group and the organization you're leading. And so being sensible to that and trying to reflect on it through those experiences they might have is one of the key points that I would like to develop in the leaders.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment on this? Yeah, Peter?
If I can add, maybe we have like 2 or 3 kind of layers of these things, how we are basically developing and preparing leaders for these roles and for these situations where they are working in multicultural kind of environment. One is definitely the compliance. We may call it like internal company compliance, which is all about this, as colleagues mentioned, diversity, inclusion, equity, and those things, right? Again, it's a basic must, which every manager needs to basically kind of understand, and because it's a part of the company culture and the values, right? So one layer is basically kind of those, let's call it like standard or kind of, let's say, corporate trainings and those things. Then of course it's all about the soft skills. So again, working in the global environment, virtual teams, multicultural environments, there are a lot of kind of different kind of trainings which people can kind of, let's say, kind of participate in to help understand the cultural differences between both foreigners coming to here and being locally, or working with the teams in the remote, including like virtual environment, which is very unique, very specific. It kind of very heavily accelerated during the COVID time. In our company, actually, we work basically remotely for many years, but still it's a unique way of working, right? If you don't meet person face to face, you don't sometimes see the body language and those things, right? To understand and basically do the same things. And the next layer is basically kind of, let's say, kind of mentoring and coaching for, let's say, maybe senior colleagues and so on. Well, there is one more thing which actually helps a lot. If it's possible and if it's allowed, to really bring the person or bring the people to the foreign country, right? To spend the time there, being with the team, with the local team, right? Imagine you are a new manager, you have people in India, you have people in Finland, you have people in US. So if you have a chance to go there and to spend a week with them, it will boost and accelerate your understanding about how to work with these people, what are their values, how to communicate, and all these things. So just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. And any comments from you, Ivona?
Thank you. Just what to add on top of Jakub and Peter facts. I think because in IBM, of course, we also have many trainings that the manager needs to attend, that they can attend on top. There is a number of activities around inclusion and cultural differences as well. I think when I was asking a couple of my colleagues that are foreign citizens here in Prague, and I checked with them what is, in their view, the best on IBM, how we are approaching them as foreigners, what is working the best. They said, of course, English language, we already discussed, everything is in English, but when I say everything, really everything, all the communications, all the leaflets on the walls in kitchenette, instructions on the wash machine of the dish, for example. So really everything, so that they really don't face a situation that they are lost and they need to translate. And so this was one. And the other was the opportunity to meet and to socialize, because usually we all that are really born in Czech Republic, we have our friends, we have our schoolmates, we have a number of people within our family. And we spend a lot of our free time with those people. And very often the foreigners coming to Czech Republic do not have such a big group of people to meet. So whenever we are able to organize any activity, which is either on a company level or it can be just organized by the manager on the team level, it's very much appreciated by these people. They are always first to come when we do some activities, and that's really so nice. And last point to this question, I mean, the personal interest of the manager about these people is very, very important. They sometimes need help. They do not know where to navigate with some even personal stuff, like maybe financial things, legal things. And it's my experience with our manager is very, very positive. They are always trying to help. If they don't know how, they come to us. And we also have a tool which is called Employee Assistance Program. It's not just for foreigners, it's for everyone. And IBM is paying specific professionals, let me say, to help people in many areas. I already mentioned financial, legal, psychological, mental support. So I would say for foreigners that may be really very big benefit, because they do not know where to go. Sometimes they may face Czech language issues outside of IBM, of course, when they go to authorities or to any doctors or so. So that would be from my side.
Okay, thank you. When we talk about the leaders, so what do you think are some common pitfalls that managers encounter when leading multinational or multicultural teams, and how this can be avoided? Anyone would like to comment and say something?
I can quickly probably just follow up on that. I think that what Petr mentioned is probably what stands in my mind as well, right? Exposure. If you do have international teams, invest into the trip, go meet them. You know, it might seem simple, but a lot of these kind of things translate in practice to very basic actions that can mean a lot to the teams. And to the overall functionality of the organization. If you have teams outside of this country, go and visit them, you know, make it your priority, go and regularly check in. You know, we run, as every other big company, we run surveys on regular basis where we check into, you know, employee experiences. And beside of asking about inclusiveness of teams, we also are asking about trust in leadership. And a lot of that kind of feedback relies on how active has the leader been to teams that sit outside of the center of gravity for that organization, right? We're representing international companies here. It's not a secret that Microsoft has headquarters in Washington, which is on the other side of the world. And for many of the teams that are remote to those core leaders, they may feel disconnected. They may feel unclear about how do they, you know, support the overall mission of the team, or how is their work necessarily contributing to the strategy. They may have issues with prioritization, let alone the challenges of different cultures and different styles of communication. And the simple presence of a leader that's physical, that's in the room, that opens up the topic of conversations, that is not just through the screen, but also in the room, asking them about their opinions and trying to clarify how their strategic vision is connected to the work that they are doing from this location, for example. It makes an incredible amount of change. But after that, those words need to be turned into actions. It cannot be simply an empty visit that creates promises that are then unfulfilled. That is a very easy pitfall to go into. So if you invest into trips, to visiting those teams, make sure there is a follow-up and that there is a clear action after that.
Thank you. I definitely agree with you. Petr?
Actually, I just wanted to mention that yesterday I returned from Latin America, where I have my team now, and I spent a few days in Brazil and Paraguay, and it really works. I mean, being there and seeing people and talking to people and understanding, like for us in Europe, I mean, it's the way how we work, but also cultural things. Like for this part of the world, it's super important to this kind of sense of belonging, right? Being part of the family, right? And if you understand these things, then you have a completely different kind of maybe change in the mindset and communication if you work in them. So, I mean, again, I'm not sure if you have any leaders in the call. I guess so. But I mean, if your leadership supports it, I would strongly encourage do it. Go there, meet with the people, spend some time with them. It can be just a few days, but it will help you to understand much better. And then it breaks the ice, and you can work with the teams globally much easier and much more effective, I would say.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Anything from you, Ivona, on this topic? Would you like to add something?
I mean, just one perspective, and this is regarding the global management. Actually, we have many people in IBM that have their functional manager in another country, of course, and this is the one who is responsible basically for the employee, for their performance assessment, for simply managing their work. And sometimes we are experiencing a situation that these managers are lacking to have really a regular and frequent one-to-one discussions with these people. And also sometimes, of course, there can be also the time zone difference when it is really big, and then it's adding additional complexity. But back to the one-to-ones, I mean, this is not just related to foreign country employees, but generally. But I think this is one of the challenges that we have, and we need to always make sure that managers are talking regularly to their people. Moreover, when they are not able to move to meet them in the office or to visit them in their home country. So the importance of frequent communication between the people is even more important when this is a remote management.
Yeah, Exactly, yeah. It seems that the role of the leaders and managers is really crucial and key, especially when having this multinational, multicultural teams and remote teams. I would also like to ask about the communication, because we already touched this topic, that the clear and streamlined communication is very important and key for every company. So I believe, and in your case, it might be a bit easier, because even you have people from all over the globe. I think that your company internal language is English, I believe. But still, do you have any strategies, or what strategies have you found effective in overcoming communication barriers within multicultural teams? Who would like to start, or should I pick someone?
Okay, I can maybe
Yeah,
go.
okay,
So you know, I think in our case, it's really kind of part of the DNA of the company. We have sometimes we call it Nordic culture, but basically what does it mean is we have very open and transparent kind of two-ways communication, right? So we are not organized very hierarchically. So basically anyone can talk to anyone, and this kind of culture where people can very freely and openly ask any questions, they can raise the complaint or concern and all of these things. It's really helping to clean actually all the potential communication issues and so on. So basically, I would say very open, candid feedback communication between the people. I mean, this is really helping. So if I don't understand because your accent is bad, because you are not a native speaker, I simply ask, right? Can you say it again, please? I don't understand, right? It's no shame, right, to say that you don't understand, right? It's a shame that if you accept and say yes, and then you do something else, right? So, I mean, I would say again, for our company speaking, I think it's really all about the culture and very open and very kind of, let's say, transparent communication between all people.
Thank you. Ivona, Jakub.
Yeah, what I may add on top of what Petr said is that in IBM, more and more in the recent period of time, the communication is driven globally or on a regional level. So we have less and less communication that would be just driven locally or concerning local topics, which I'm sure makes some kind of a environment which is equal for everyone in the company in every country. So everyone is informed timely. We are trying to, let me say, encourage people to follow all the channels. Of course, we have emails. We have a channel which is called Slack, where we have really a number of channels with various information. People may feel overloaded with all those channels, because sometimes it's really too much. They are busy. They are concentrating on the daily job and on the priorities. But maybe even more, it's important to have the communication driven in a clear manner, not too often, ask them to follow appropriate channels that are important for their job, and reduce maybe the communication that is rather ad hoc or is coming from some unexpected channels. So overall, in IBM, we are trying to make sure that everyone is getting information that are really valid for all the countries in the same time.
Thank you, Ivona. Jakub, anything from your side?
I would probably say that the answer depends on what's the next click to that question, right? What type of communication are we saying or talking about? Because I agree, right? Depending on the size of the organization, the particular type of the business that the organization is about, we do have global channels, and I agree with Ivona that it can very easily become overwhelming. What I've noticed often is that when you have distributed teams, it's very fine line between balancing between letting people decide their time and join or not join certain meetings, but then also have their voices heard, right? So when your leaders and your leadership is sitting in a different continent, your calls may start at 5, 6, 7 p.m. And then it becomes a really tough question about, do I join this meeting and do I voice my opinion, or do I skip it and put it into my personal life, which you should totally balance out, right? So I think that it really goes back to how do you create the sense of safety that you can speak out, and the sense of trust that you can skip something and follow up on it later, so that you're not just joining team meetings for the sake of joining team meetings. And that's, we have silos, we have gaps in communications, so I'm not going to say that it's perfect. We have all these global, channels as well. I think it's important to have a localized communication because the sense of identity, even if you are part of a global company, you need to have an identity to the local team and the local presence as well, because then it can easily become very, very disconnected, and the level of impact people can bring to the company if they don't feel like they are part of the company really super minimized in that case. So yeah, my 2 cents.
Thank you for your answer. I would like to again ask the participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to send us it via our question and answer. And if you have also something for Zuzana Křecková, who is still with us, just go ahead. I can ask maybe some more general question to you. So what do you see the biggest advantages of having such a multicultural teams or working environment for the companies and even for the employees themselves? And it can be anything from your side. What do you think is really the most important, Peter?
I can maybe start if it's okay. So I think it's multiple things, right? But I would really start with one, which is, you know, speaking from my engineering shoes, I can see it basically every day. This diversity is creating a huge potential for innovations, right? Full stop, right? Because this, I mean, imagine if you put together people from the different environment, from the different, let's say, geographies, nationalities, genders, age, we can call it diversity, right? This is really the potential for innovations and for basically kind of, let's say, to drive the new things and basically think out of the box, right? This is one. And any technological company which is really kind of focused on innovations, I think clearly see the values, and this is why we are operating globally, right? And on top of this, there are of course the practical things like having basically kind of, let's say, maybe some customers and clients around the world. You have basically 24/7 all these activities because you have offices anywhere. For people, it's actually super interesting because they can expose themselves to work from the different locations, and we are basically open to the global, let's say, mobility or global movement of the talent, basically between the branches, between the offices, right? So it's creating actually a lot of opportunities for people to grow in the career path and potentially grow in a completely different places, but still working for the same company, right? So I would say those may be 3 things. I would really highlight the innovations because, again, for technology and engineering companies, this is the greatest value what you can imagine, right? Having the diversified team.
Thank you. Any comments from you, Ivona? What do you think the biggest advantages, or maybe for your company?
Yeah, just to add again on what Peter said, I think these are the different perspective, different way of thinking, ability to be really open-minded, because sometimes really when we are coming from different cultures, it brings some challenges that we already discussed. So that would be from my side. Also opening up the personal area, so people may get really inspired in terms of their personal travel. They may decide to apply, for example, for some global mobility opportunity within the company because they have a friend from the foreign country here locally. So many other things impacting also our private lives. But what I would really highlight is the need for our local people to speaking English. Because many times in my life when I was talking to my friends from other companies that are rather small or they do not have many opportunity to talk in English, they say, you are so lucky, you have to use English, and this is really helping you to keep the knowledge and the experience with this foreign language even daily, basically. So that's another very important benefit that is related to the situation.
Thank you. Jakub,
I will only echo what was mentioned. I fully agree that diversity and mainly inclusion of the diversity is the imperative for strategic success and for business success. Without it, technology will not be innovative. It will not grow. If you just think about the simple translation of that is, depending on what your customer field or customer population is, how do your products truly speak to them will depend on how you listen to your customers. And if your customers are all around the world, then you better listen to all of the people around the world. And if you don't, then your business is going to die. That's it.
Yes, exactly. I think that's you. You say it in a great way. Okay, I would also like to touch the flexibility at work, because I believe that this is something that is very important for you and your employees all over the world, or for the teams. So what flexibility options do you actually offer, and how does it work? And is it really something that your employees require, or is it a must for you? Yeah, Ivona, if you can maybe start.
Yeah. So probably we will start with the topic of home office work, which obviously after the COVID era is now much more widely used by companies. In IBM, we were supporting the work from home even long term via flexible office program, but now actually, of course, even more the reality is like that in many similar companies. So currently we are encouraging employees to work in a hybrid mode. Meaning we would really like them to see them in the office, and to encourage them to meet not just with people from their team, but also with others. Because when you are talking, when you are sharing your experience, even in the lobby or during your lunch, this is something that you never experience at home. And so we are trying to explain to the people that it's really valuable to combine the work from home and from the office. Currently, the aim is to have the employees in the office 3 times a week, let's say 3 days a week in the office, 2 days at home. Obviously, there can be some individual preferences of some of the employees, but they need to understand that really the physical presence and physical meeting with other colleagues is very valuable, and that's what we are trying to explain. Sometimes it's really challenging as people got used to work from home, and very openly it brings a lot of practical advantages, like organization of the homework of the children, schools, kindergarten, and so on. So from this flexibility point of view, this is how we are driving it. And maybe we can also touch the point of part-time jobs. Always, whenever it's possible, we support our employees, mainly, for example, ladies coming back from maternity leave. This is the typical example. And so, I mean, in this respect, we are not really making any difference if this is a foreign country employee or Czech citizens. We are trying to approach everyone the same.
Yeah, okay, thank you. What possibilities here in Czech Republic with flexibility do you offer, Jakub, to your employees here?
For Microsoft, flexibility, I think, was always on the table. It was always a conversation, I would say. Just simply considering the products that we have, the fact that we're on Teams right now is a case in itself that we were always supportive of flexibility. As of right now, I would say we don't predetermine any limits to anyone. We leave it up for the conversation for every single employee to have the discussion with their team, have the discussion with their manager, and be able to change it as they want to or as they see fit. So in a nutshell, we have a input tool where people submit, how much percentage-wise they actually want to be in the office versus at home. They have a tool where they can see the metrics of how they have actually been kind of like keeping up with it, and they can change it whenever they want to. At the same time, building on top of that, we're having trainings for every single team to have a team agreement so that they can talk about what best fits for the team collectively, depending on how distributed or centralized it is. So building on top of what Ivona mentioned, right? If people already transferred to Czech Republic and they have actually relocated to the country for the work here, then we highly recommend for teams to have a good dynamic and to have an agreement where it's attractive and sensible for people to come and meet in person. So whether they select a particular day or they have a certain ratio that they agree upon as a team, that's up to them. We don't set limits as a company. We leave it up to the managers and the teams to have that open conversation. But through COVID, where our local site has tripled in size, mainly from talent from outside of the country, we have seen how detrimental it can be to be fully remote and have zero physical connection to the people that are here. So no limit, but there's some pros and cons for both sides. So we leave it up to the conversation, and we have resources, our coaches that are available at any point to discuss that and facilitate the conversation for the team as best fit.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's good to really find the right balance. Any experience, any comments from your side, Peter?
I would say for us, it's very similar like to what Jakub mentioned. So, I mean, first we need to really differentiate between the different type of the jobs, right? If you are a test engineer who need to be in the lab, right, it probably makes no sense to kind of, let's say, kind of push him to work from home or her from home, right? In our case, actually, we are basically fully digital software company. So basically, we have this privilege that people can basically work from home or work from office. We have a complete freedom. Basically, our people can work from wherever they want, basically. It really depends on, so I think it's two aspects, right? Where do people work from and when do people work from, right? Because this flexibility also like, balancing the work and the personal life and all of these things, right? So again, if you are a software developer who is working on his or her assigned tasks, you usually have a freedom and you can work 3 a.m. in the morning and nobody is just basically kind of, you need to deliver the expected type of the work, right? But of course, then if you are part of the team, you need to always kind of, let's say, align on the expectations from the team. When are we meeting? Where are we meeting? And I would really kind of highlight to what Jakub mentioned. So especially for the newcomers, for new people joining the company, there is a huge value of meeting in person, right? Having a buddy assign or mentor assign and meeting like regularly face to face and those things. We started with this kind of home working kind of, or basically kind of, let's say, flexible working time actually before COVID, and it works for us. What is really interesting actually that now after like when the COVID is over, maybe over the last 1.5 years, I mean, people are kind of coming back to the office and not necessarily that we are forcing them to come again. They have the freedom, but they are really kind of sometimes valuing this kind of social aspect, right? I'm not sure what is the right English word, but it's kind of, let's say, really kind of like sense of belonging, being part of the community, meeting with the people, going for lunch, taking the coffee together, maybe just once a week, right? So this, let's say, this is works, but to summarize it, basically, we are allowing people to work basically whenever and whenever they want. We just need to make sure that the business is operating as expected, and this is it basically.
Okay, thank you. Then I will have another question maybe for all of you, even for Zuzana Křecková, because we talked a lot about the cultural differences, and I think that the cultural competencies will be very, very important for all of us and also for your employees. So how do you foresee the role of cultural competencies evolving in future or in coming years? Do you see it's going to be more focused on that to develop people and educate them in cultural differences and adaptability, or not? Maybe Zuzana, we can start from you.
Okay. I think that the cultural competencies are or started to be at forefront of university education. I see it. When I was a student, I studied a very unique program when I studied in different countries, worked in different countries, and that was very unique, and it then opened me the door everywhere. Now, the current trend at university education, and then when I was choosing a job, it was door opener everywhere because it was so unique, and I saw it myself how hard it was sometimes to work for me with people who were never exposed to any other culture because they were really closed-minded. So being exposed to working with different cultures, living in different environments, studying in different environments is changing you. It's changing you, definitely makes you more tolerant, more open-minded, more willing to listen to other ideas, and realizing that your way of solving things doesn't have to be the best one, definitely. Now, what's the trend at university education, at least at Vysoká škola ekonomická v Praze? For example, at my faculty, which you could see in the top, Faculty of International Relations, our bachelor students can go and study for 1 semester abroad, and master students have to. They have to either go and study abroad or go and work abroad for 1 semester. It's compulsory part because we made it part of the curriculum because we want our graduates to have it in profile, to have it in their DNA. Some of those who are really very good, they even manage 2 semesters abroad, one studying abroad and one which is as practical placement or internship abroad. And I see the trend even from other universities. It is even, it's very well developed in France, because French universities, especially business schools, the best ones, are aware of the fact how French-centric the culture is. So they are sending students not only for one semester, they are sending them for a whole year, which, if you recall what happens to you in the culture shock, means that they really force these kids to go through the culture shock. Yeah, yes, so in at the best universities, development of cultural competencies is part of your graduation. You will not graduate without that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's quite important even for students to be aware of those things, and I think it's a great idea for other schools as well. So how do you see it in your companies, actually, because you work with people from all over the world, actually, all over the globe. So maybe do you see any differences in between the generations in your companies, how they perceive the cultural differences? So like older generation more having more biases versus the graduates, fresh students, or have you noticed something like that? Whoever wants to.
Maybe I can start. I just wanted to kind of second on what Professor Křecková mentioned, because there is a clearly, at least I can clearly see the younger generation to be much more kind of ready for this environment, because basically from the almost like from the kindergarten and elementary school, they are exposed to English. They have a chance to travel. They can go to different programs to the foreign countries, which is really kind of, let's say, removing any bias, because they have a lot of opportunities to kind of, let's say, kind of see the different environments, different cultures, and all of these things. So basically, when they are joining companies, they are basically kind of like home, right? They know this, right? This is no surprise, right? For some of us, older generations, it's maybe a little bit kind of different. But again, I would say that exposure to this situation is really kind of helping everybody to basically, by learning by doing, basically, if I oversimplify it, right? And then I think people will just kind of, let's say, start kind of accommodating and accepting different opinions, different cultures, and those things, and start benefiting from this rather than seeing an issue. But younger generation definitely have a benefit. I can see it already with the young people joining our company.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Ivona, Jakub, any comments from your side?
Yeah, I may add also absolutely agreement with Petr. The younger generation versus, let's say, the older generations, they may have issues with the language. That was also already mentioned. There may have other barriers. They may have simply some limitations to be a little bit more open to communicate around the globe. But to your question, absolutely, this is the key topic of the current world, because with more and more globalization of various teams inside each international company, people have to communicate across the borders with people from foreign countries. At least in IBM, this is the case. We are recently, of course, more and more shifting to tools supported by artificial intelligence, to bots. So they are all supported by teams anywhere in the world. So this is more and more important. But what I also wanted to say, sometimes there may be some bias or expectations or worries on some people's side that they will not be able to deal with someone who is completely from the different part of the world. But the more people have experience, they are getting to learn that the world is rather small. Sometimes we meet people from the country which is really completely in the other part of the globe, but we seem to have same way of thinking, same values. And the more experience the people have, they start to understand that this is not really a barrier, or this is not a complexity. It's something that will help them to grow for sure.
Thank you. Jakub, anything to add?
My quick answer to this, I think, is yes, it's absolutely critical. And I think the Czech market, is a very clear proof of how international and how diverse the economy is becoming. This is not anymore a topic of conversation for just the big international companies that we may represent here. But my quick assumption would be that the absolute majority of the many startups that we have in Czech Republic is to be international and to grow outside of the borders of this country, and therefore they have to be inclusive, and they have to be prepared for being intercultural. I would actually take a quick jump over to the questions that were submitted here, because there was one particular piece that connects to this piece. And let me read it. I'm working with more than 35 cultures and I work cross-sector. I basically feel I cannot adapt to all of them. What would you suggest? In my quick answer to this, I don't necessarily think that your aim is to adapt to all of them, but to rather create an environment where everyone feels safe to speak out and to recognize the limitations of one's own cultural aspects and welcome those specifics from the other cultures, right? The capability that we try to instill in our managers and employees is cultural agility, which recognizes these differences in cultures and actually tries to invite them into a collective conversation. That's my segue.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We have some questions from the audience, so we'll definitely open them. Would anyone like to say an answer to this question about these 35 cultures across sectors? So, how to adapt? How would you suggest how to adapt?
I would like to stress one thing: remain yourself. Yeah, remain yourself. Be genuine. And listen. That's it. Because if you would try to adapt to different cultures, the other side will be confused who you are. Yeah. So remain yourself. Just listen and ask and probe by questions that you understand what they really want, what they are meaning by what they say, what they as a clients what they need, and then you will be fine. Trust yourself.
I may also add one point: do not make assumptions. I mean, we have discussed a lot about various trainings and differences between, like, for example, UK people versus from I think it was from Netherlands. But this is just nice to have, to understand what we can expect, how people are different, and not to be surprised. But we should never generalize or make assumptions just because of the country origin.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly the same thing here. I would say the really good thing is about active listening, and don't be shy to ask if you don't understand something. And let's say rephrase the things and those things, right? Did I understand right that you mean this and those things, right? So this kind of, let's say, very open communication is the key to everything. Maybe just to add, I think it's all for all three of us being in large companies, what is really kind of helping with some, let's say, to avoid some issues and conflicts, really kind of define processes. And this is what I tried to kind of mention in the beginning, that I mean, if you have a large company with thousands of the people, right, and hundreds of the nationalities, I mean, the standardization of the language and processes is really helping, while still benefiting from the multicultural environment. And for the daily communication, just for what I mentioned here, very open, very kind of, let's say, communication, feedback, and all of these things. Ask if you don't understand, if you don't know, ask, right, immediately, not tomorrow, not today, 2 days later, right? Ask now, because I don't understand. Can you please repeat again, right?
Okay, so there is another question from the audience. So I think we already touched this a little bit, but we can answer it. Remote or hybrid work requires a lot of effort from the managers to ensure everyone feels included, everyone can speak out, is heard, and to encourage cooperation, make sure that new joiners are well incorporated, and so on. So what tools or training or support do you offer to managers in this area? Yeah, Jakub.
Quick answer, and I'll build on what Petr actually mentioned, because you talked about standardizing certain things, right? And I think that's one of the things that I want to call out to this example as well, and that is when we switched to hybrid and we started, having the meetings on Teams or other platforms with some people in the room and some people outside of the room, what often happens instinctively is that the conversation centers around people in the room and doesn't necessarily always include people outside of the room. So one very practical example of this is that in every meeting room we have in the office, we have a little pamphlet in the center of the table with 10 rules of inclusive kind of behaviors for hybrid meetings, which call out for making eye contact with the people on the call, calling them out if they don't necessarily speak, having always cameras turned on so people know that they are actually present, right, and so on and so forth. So some practical things that can be, as Petr said, standardized as processes, so that it is becoming your DNA or your culture, by default.
Mm-hmm. I would probably add 2 points on what Jakub mentioned, sorry. And this is in particular regarding the onboarding of newcomers, because when the team is working rather in hybrid mode or people are not meeting frequently in the office, this must be very, very difficult for the newcomer to even understand what is the culture in the company, how they should behave, what is standard, what is not, how to socialize, whom to go. And so definitely the recommendation for the manager who is inviting a newcomer would be to focus on the first weeks, maybe first months, as we have the probation period, for example. So at least the three first months to be in a frequent touch with the employee, to try to meet in the office also with the other team members. It's very important, otherwise the newcomers are feeling quite lost, and it takes a lot of time to build the connection with the company, not just with the team itself and the manager, but also with the company overall. And the other thing is what I mentioned again previously, and this is the frequent one-to-one conversation between the employee and manager. Sometimes it happens that we realize that the employee joined the company and, for example, 2-3 weeks waiting for the first, let's say, really detailed and comprehensive discussion with the manager. So that's really something which never can happen. And in this respect, this should be part of the trainings for the manager to concentrate and really focus on the initial first days and weeks of the newcomer.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it's really 80 to 90% of everything is communication, right? And actually, I'm just kind of thinking about some history where I had a chance to see teams which basically kind of worked as a compact standalone team on one site, one office, and meeting and basically daily basis and talking and making decisions and so on. And then this team was integrated to a larger company, right, where they needed to start working from people from different countries, different languages, and virtual environment. It was like a shock, right? Because they always kind of met and made a decision, right? It was clear to all of them who were in the room, clear, right? Done, then they left and did, right? And now they basically were exposed to the situation that in the larger team, still some decisions needed to take place and all of these things, but they were not kind of so this kind of switch to, let's say, standardizing the work of, like, the meeting minutes, this is what we agreed on, having the camera so that all people are kind of engaged and involved, and these things, it took some time. But actually, after whatever, like 6 months, maybe this team kind of started operating in a global environment. But it's a change. It's a big change for anyone who didn't work in this global virtual environment, which is a big thing, right? So again, kind of the standardization of, let's say, best practices and the rules, right? If you are making decisions, we are documenting them. I can't say it. We are documenting them so that everybody is aware about what we agreed on, and they can't say no, this is something else, and so on. But it's really kind of big cultural change, right, to kind of operate in this environment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing? What helped in my life? At the beginning of my career, I worked in management consulting in a global company, RCD Little, and what helped us was at the beginning of each project to have kickoff meeting. Of course, we were a rich company, so it was easy for us to gather somewhere physically. But honestly, it was like energy ball that we used for further weeks of cooperation wherever we were on the earth. So meeting at the beginning, having kickoff meeting definitely helps if you can afford it. And then what I have seen in academia, I was managing one international joint degree program, which was a global. And again, meeting at least once a year physically helped us to run the program. And if somebody couldn't, well, we were meeting 2 to 3 times a year, but at least once a year was absolute must. Otherwise, the person and the country and the university was falling apart. So I think if you can afford it, having sometimes physical meeting, it helps to even if you know each other for a long time, you also have sometimes some tensions, and it helps always to obrousit hrany, to soften the sharp points. Yeah, and yeah, so at least once a year, I would say, rule of thumb.
Thank you for your comment. There's also one more question, quite specific. What is your experience building international development Scrum teams? Are you facing the situation where team works more as a group of individuals rather than a team? Maybe
I can take it. I can start because this is from our area. I've seen both. I mean, and there are different approaches about like, and if it's about Scrum and Agile type of development. I had a chance to kind of see both approaches, like co-located teams in one place, right? Ideally meeting physically for the stand-up meetings and those, and also kind of meetings running virtually because of the COVID time, or virtually because of people kind of spread around the globe, right? I think it's all about the culture and defining the rules and defining the processes. If this is done properly, and if we agree that this is how we run the meeting, this is how we are taking the decisions, this is how do we communicate and those things, honestly, I don't see any issue in running those kind of, let's say virtual Scrum teams where people are not necessarily in the same location, same room, or the same city. So at least in an environment which I'm exposed to, it works pretty well. But again, rules and basically kind of agreement on the common things. How do we do things?
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment on that, or maybe a specific question for Tietoevry? Okay. I would like to again ask the audience and participants any question. This is your last chance to throw some questions to the chat. I would like to ask all of you, what would be your key recommendation to other employers, other companies who deal with this topic at workplace? What do you think is the most important for them to know, based on your experience? Any really key recommendation? Can be 1, 2, 3 tips. Jakub, yeah.
It's going to be a tough question or ask, but if I am to be courageous and say, start the conversation, I think that's one. Help if you are an HR professional, or if you're part of the board, or if you're part of leadership, help your fellow leaders own it, because at the end of the day, this is not something that can obviously be successful built from grassroots. This is something that needs to be modeled through the leadership throughout the organization. So have your leaders own it, and put your money where your mouth is. Invest into these types of things, whether that is trips to the locations, whether that is workshops, whether that is catering for people to come to the office and meet in person, and when you're doing all hands. It can be many different things depending on your context. So those would be the 3 things that I would say.
Thank you. Who would like to be next, Ivona?
Yeah, I mean, again, I would also echo what Jakub mentioned, but also what I would add is to proactively search for the feedback, to ask really proactively, because sometimes people talk, share between themselves what they like, what they don't like, but sometimes they may feel not really encouraged to speak up, or to really be be that open, either with manager or with HR teams or other professionals. So very obviously, many companies are using typically annual surveys. So, for example, in IBM, we have quite a few years already the diversity and inclusion part inside of the key, let me say, areas of the survey. So we are frequently asking employees whether they feel well included themselves, whether they also believe that IBM environment in their workplace is inclusive. They are really asked a couple of concrete questions about that. So maybe one recommendation, not to forget about this area in your regular surveys, employee engagement, however you call it in your company, to ask very concrete questions and get their feedback about that.
Thank you.
I would say, don't be afraid. Be brave enough to do this step, right? And I've seen several times where there was a manager running a team with only Czech people, Czech native speakers, right? And then there was one foreigner who was about to join the team, right? And the manager was like, well, but this would need to change, to switch to English and all of these things and so on. So sometimes it's this kind of first step, right? Which you need to kind of take to start with this kind of global approach. But honestly, it's an investment which will return, right? So, I mean, once you do this first step, you are immediately opening the pool to additional candidates, and I mean, there will be much more, or actually many more people who can you then hire and make part of your team to really kind of create the value. So, I would say just don't be afraid and start with it, right? I mean, if your company is having defined rules and the best practices and those things, ideally if the language is English, which is of course kind of needed for this kind of type of environment, then I don't think there is an issue. It's an investment for sure, because it's a change for people in the team, for the manager, maybe for HR to kind of accommodate foreigner or foreigners in the team. But in the end, again, it will return in larger creativity, innovations, and all of these things which you can achieve. And I would really like to again highlight, we mentioned it, I think 3 of us many times, physically meeting the people, go to the foreign country, meeting with the people. This is extremely important. This will break the ice. As Professor Křecková mentioned, when kicking off a new project in the team, kickoff should be in person ideally, so the team meets, it breaks the ice, and it helps a lot in the future communication and collaboration.
Thank you. Well, indeed. And Zuzana, any recommendations from you?
I would say go for it. I love it. It's definitely the cultural diversity is. I think it's enriching everybody who wants to be enriched. Just actively listen, don't assume, ask, clarify, and it will prevent you from groupthink. You will have better ideas, more innovative people, more enriched people, sometimes slightly shocked, but definitely in long term curious and enriched.
Thank you. So the main message of today, just go for it, don't be afraid. Okay, I would like to maybe touch one more thing, which is the shortage of talents in the Czech Republic, and especially it's not only IT and technology company, but just many other companies and are looking for people for and talents for their positions. So what would be maybe your secret recruitment? This secret recruitment tips, how to hire and bring the talents, if you have any. I know that your big companies and your brands attract talents, but still, if there is anything that you can recommend. Yeah, Jakub.
Pay the most. No, I'm just joking. I think it's about finding the passion. Try to connect with the talent that is going to be passionate about what your company does, because that passion is going to be the first step that will get them to move for your company or work for your company. And then make sure that that passion doesn't disappear through the employee experience.
Thank you.
Maybe 2 or 3 things here actually. So it's an investment again. We need, I mean, if you want to hire people, we need to invest, right? We need to be visible on the job market. We need to be present and all of these things. But there is one more thing which actually I think is very important, because I truly believe that people follow people, right? So make your leaders visible, right? Make sure that it's not company XYZ or Tietoevry hiring. It's Petr who is hiring someone so that people really understand this will be potentially my boss, and they have the personal interaction, right? So this kind of, let's say, face or name or person behind the hiring manager, I think actually very important. By the way, one completely side note, but you are right. The shortage on the job market is real, especially for the technology companies. And why I'm mentioning it actually just today morning here in Brno, we kind of signed a large memorandum with several companies and 3 Brno universities and the Brno region, South Moravian region, actually, about running a big program about what do we do to make sure that the young talent studies technical universities. Because while the trend at the universities in Czech Republic is still growing, we have more and more university-educated people. The technology universities are struggling or even going down, right? So we need to make sure that we will understand why is it so. Why do young people prefer other things than the technology and then the technical kind of, let's say education, right? And make sure that we will help to kind of change this mindset, right? Because there is nothing bad about becoming a software engineer or mechanical engineer. So I just wanted to kind of make a side note that this is really important, and we, like large companies, we are really understanding this and we are ready to help universities and also the region Czech Republic to understand why is it so, and how do we make sure that people will go for technical education, because we need them and we will need them more and more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Ivona?
Yeah, by the way, I also had a point about students. In fact, just to remind all of us of the importance of the internship, for example, because this is a great opportunity for the students to really know the environment of the company. Sometimes IBM, of course, is the worldwide known company, and everyone knows what is IBM. But sometimes from the external world, people do not know exactly what we are doing here in the Czech Republic. What are the latest trends in IT, and what they can actually learn when cooperating with us. So the opportunity for the students to touch the real work and to meet with IBMers, it's helping them to make a decision if they like that, if they appreciate the huge number of opportunities that they have in our internal learning, for example. So this is a great opportunity to really have a tangible experience, and then for us to be able to select right candidates for our openings if for example, it's in their area.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely agree what Petr said, that there's a shortage of talents and it starts with the education. So we would probably need some more time to discuss this issue. But maybe, Zuzana, do you have any answer to that? Why the technical subjects and technical universities are not that popular among the young generation?
I think it also starts probably at elementary school and high schools, unfortunately. So we at the university, we cannot, well, not that we cannot do much about it, but it's hard for us, yeah, because students, so some of them really come with their vision that the math is not for them, yeah. And yeah, we see it. That they are getting better and better in the languages, so their exposure to that part is definitely better. But if you look at PISA tests, we are, I would say, constantly worsening since the Velvet Revolution in terms of technical subjects. Another way how to overcome it might be students from abroad. So I would say one great thing comparatively to the rest of the world of developed countries with good education is free education in Czech. So if the student decides to study in Czech, they don't have to pay any tuition. On top of the Czech Republic is quite safe country and still relatively cheap. So I know that you are not sort of eager to wait for 5 years for next graduates, but I think that the Czech Republic is quite good, attractive country to attract talents to study here. And once they study, they usually want to stay. So that might be the way, but it's long term. I understand. It's 5 years. At least.
At least.
At least 5 years. Yeah.
In connection with what we have just discussed, there is also not the question, but rather a comment that maybe students are thinking that artificial intelligence will replace developers or IT employees in general. So do you agree with that, or do you think it's going to be that way?
Well, I would rephrase it. It will change the way how we work, right? it will potentially replace some positions, and actually based on, I mean, if you ask me, I mean, like many years back, I mean, everybody knew that things like artificial intelligence, that time we call it like neural networks and those things, right? And robotics and so on. We always kind of thought that these things will replace the repetitive and manual type of the work, right? But with the AI starting now, we can see that this is not necessarily true, right? AI is potentially replacing creative positions like translators and those things, right? So copywriting and similar kind of types of the jobs, right? So, but I would say that in the technical area, like in the software design, software development, it will change the way how do we work. Will it create any shortage of the resources or resource need on the job market? There are different theories, right? Maybe it will not grow like 200% every year, maybe only 100% a year, but I think it still will grow. But for sure, it will change the way how we work, how we develop software in this case, right? So basically, anyone who is basically kind of learning it and becoming curious about this and starting using it will benefit in the job market in the future, for sure.
Yeah. Any comments from
I would
others?
maybe build on top and say that I think that because of the development of AI and the way that it's applied across the different fields and professions, it will actually make it more accessible for people to learn how to code, for them to enter the junior level positions in the STEM kind of professions. So I think that it can, to a degree, it will redistribute how the work looks like. It will redistribute how any work looks like. I think that's fair to say outside of the IT sector. But I think it will also make it more accessible for people to become proficient in this area and join the companies and feel more comfortable to actually reach out and start building those skills. So as Professor Křecková mentioned, that there is a certain lack of appetite for it. I think that this in the long run can actually change that and make it more appetizing for young people. But it all depends on how does the local or how does the country and the organizations here actually stand up to it. So I first want to say huge props to Petr and Tietoevry for doing what you're doing in Brno and standing up with the universities to change that in the long run, because it may be 5 years, but that's strategic, right? That makes the difference.
Yeah, true. Any comment from you, Ivona, this?
Just adding that obviously AI and all this digitalization, everything is changing the way of our work. It will for sure reduce a couple of roles. Maybe it will reduce number of people in the teams thanks to the system supporting what the people were doing. But my own perception is that this should create more space for for all of us in the activities that are really based on human thinking, on really something that we cannot never replace by artificial intelligence. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's maybe just my personal wish and opinion, but today in our jobs we all have a combination. We are doing a lot of administrative things. We need to manage our processes, approve things, push the buttons here and there. So in case this is removing from our table, then I hope we will be able to create something new and invest more time into the things that will never be replaceable.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
We are fighting with students how to use AI, because now they think that, oh, we have AI and AI will do seminar papers for us and bachelor thesis for us. And so our biggest challenge now is actually we are one thing. We say it is here, and we are changing how we are teaching and examining students, because we see that like each 3 to 6 months, we really have to update these things. Point number one. Point number two, Varsha is member of Artificial Intelligence Association, and I think it's the first university. But what's our biggest challenge is to explain students that working with AI requires their critical thinking. And this development of critical thinking is currently probably the biggest challenge, to tell them that first they have to be very knowledgeable about the subject and then they can play with the AI. so that they can distinguish what AI is doing well and what the AI is just bullshitting about. So now we see the next dimension of our job, and yeah, it is definitely one of the most dynamic things that we are currently doing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, I think, and we live in a very dynamic period, so we're gonna see what's gonna happen. But definitely, there are no other questions, and we used up all our questions. So if there is any last comments from you, feel free to speak up now. Unless we close the seminar, the webinar. Yeah. So any final comments from our valuable speakers?
I guess I would just like to say thank you. Thank you for Professor Křecková. Thank you, Petr and Ivona, for participating in the conversation. And thank you for everyone joining. It was a pleasure being here. And I hope that it was valuable and that there will be more conversations to happen in the future. And thank you, Kamila, for facilitating, and the Business with Society for organizing this session.
Yeah. So thank you to all of you as well. Yeah, we'll definitely share the materials and the presentation. There was a really, as you mentioned, Jakub, a great discussion, great ideas, and inspiring ideas for all of us. So thank you to all of you again. Petr Gratz from Tietoevry, Jakub Lukešfrom from Microsoft, Ivona Kopčová for IBM, and Zuzana Křecková from VŠE. And now we are closing the webinar. So thank you to all participants as well. And I wish you a great rest of the day. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.